Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to make a video that could hopefully be helpful to you all if you plan on traveling to compete. I know for me personally, one of my major goals as a lifter and one of the main reasons why I chose the federations that I've chosen for powerlifting is to get that opportunity to travel and compete on an international level against some of the best lifters in the world. So if you're getting ready to make that leap from local travel to maybe even between states and then eventually between continents, possibly, then today's going to be the video for you. So whenever I talk about travel early on in my lifting career, I kind of just reasoned it away and thought that, hey, if I knew it was going to be a thing and I just focused hard enough, then it wouldn't have an effect on me. And I think that's one of the easiest misconceptions to adopt as an early lifter who's starting their travel. And maybe if you haven't traveled and competed in other time zones before, maybe you hold the belief that travel isn't a big factor. But ultimately, if you've done it, you know what I'm talking about whenever I say travel does have an effect. Now, to me, there's two major things, possibly three, that are going to play a role in how travel is going to affect you personally and your performance on game day. So number one is actually the time change, and that's the biggest thing that you might think about, especially if you are going somewhere where you're leaping forward in time. So if you're traveling east on the globe, so for me, I live in the eastern United States. If I go over across to Europe, I know that that's going to have an effect on my performance, and I'm going to have to take it into account because of that time change. Now, there's a few ways that you can mitigate that time change affecting your performance. One of them is certainly get there early, and you'll find that's probably the first thing that I recommend on all of these issues. If you get to your destination early enough, give your body enough time to adapt to where you are, what the time change is, then you're going to have a better shot on meet day to have the best performance. I've thrown around the ideas of like adjusting my sleep schedule in and around meet day. I've never been super successful with this. Maybe something you could do is adjust your training schedule to try and line up as well as you can with wherever you're going to be competing. So let's say you're going to be competing in Denmark, as an example. I believe they're about 6 hours ahead of me right now. What that means is if lifting time is 12 p.m., it's going to feel like 6 a.m. for me. So if I have a competition coming up that's in that time zone, I may start creeping my training time up if at all possible. I know we usually have jobs and school, and that's not always possible, but if at all possible, it might be beneficial to slowly creep your training time up earlier in the morning. That way, whenever you get over there, if you're not fully adapted to your the time change yet, that's going to be okay. You're used to training in the morning. So that's one thing, get there early. And my other tip is get over there, and if, let's say your flight goes through the night and you really feel like sleeping, but it's in the middle of the day over in Europe, wherever you are, do not go to sleep. Because if you go to sleep how your body wants to go to sleep, then that's just going to carry over and create this bad habit of staying on your old time zone rather than getting onto the new one. The better advice is to push through it and try and go to sleep at the normal bedtime in your new destination. Okay, so that's the first main hurdle. The second two kind of go together. I'll list the first one that all of us can probably take something from, that's going to be that food will be weird, most likely. So whether you're going to Europe, Central America, pretty much any new country is going to have slightly different food and water. So for me personally, I know it's a huge pain in the neck, but I pack a check bag full of the foods that I'm used to eating already for the days leading up to the meet. Honestly, I could care less about the days after the meet. I can get sick, whatever, and it'll be okay. But for the days leading up, I try and plan as much as possible. So that's going to include things like rice cakes, granola bars, things that are easy to pack in a suitcase, protein powders, canned chicken. Any of those things should be okay to take with you on your flight as long as it's checked. Security is not going to have an issue. The only time you might run into problems is if you're trying to transport fruit or vegetables, which, for a few days before powerlifting meet, don't worry about that stuff. Pack your multivitamin. So packing food is a big deal because sometimes you get over there. I know in Europe, they're notorious for having just meats and cheeses as meals. Me personally, I need some carbs, and I really struggled to find those foods while I was over there. So packing can certainly solve that issue. The thing that goes with that is actually water. So we kind of take it for granted here in the United States, but in a lot of foreign countries, the water may not be super safe to drink, or at least straight out of the tap. So once again, I will take that same check bag with my food and pack as many water bottles as I need in the days leading up to the competition. So at this point, you should know how much water you're drinking on a daily basis. Kind of multiply that out by the days, depending on if you're doing a water cut, and make sure you have that available so that whenever you get over there, you're not scrambling to find water and you don't end up with some sort of amoeba that makes your stomach sick. Okay? So there we are, food, water, and then the third kind of bonus thing that you need to take into account is going to be your water cut. So I have had some nightmare stories personally about I have this process on how to cut weight. I have a story from competing in Costa Rica, so that's not even a bad time zone that I was moving into because it's basically directly south and a little bit west of me. But because of the time of the flight, it was so early in the morning, I kind of missed a night of sleep, and it threw off my water cut by exactly 1 day, which means, if I was used to being 125 kilos 2 days out, and then 123 1 day out, and then I make 120 on the day of, whenever I got down to Costa Rica, I was a day behind schedule. So 1 day out, I was 125 kilos, and it ended up in this miserable mess of a day, spending the entire day in a sauna trying to sauna off 11 pounds. And I made it by 0.22 kilos. Fortunately, it did not ruin my day. My day went fine, but I don't want you all to be in that situation. So instead, and this is something I'm doing for competing here at North Americans in a couple weeks, be more disciplined and get your body weight down a little bit less than what you're used to for cutting. So if I'm used to cutting 5 kilos, I'm going to get myself lean to 3.5 kilos over instead of 5. That way, if I'm a day behind, that's totally fine because my normal 1 day out is about 3 kilos over, and it kind of works out that way. So, just to recap, we're looking at time zones, your number one enemy when traveling. Number two is going to be food and water. You can really mitigate both of those things with proper planning and paying a little bit extra just to have that check bag with all of your food. And then number three is going to be any potential water cuts. I highly suggest, if it's your first international meet, trying to cut as little as possible But once again, with proper planning, you can mitigate that issue as well. Okay, so let me know down below, are you preparing for an international meet, or where is the next meet that you're looking to go to? Have you ever had to deal with this kind of travel before? I know it's kind of the biggest bittersweet in my mind, because it's hard to travel and compete well, but it's so fun to travel and get to go to these countries. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, happy lifting.